You're listening to the Blindside podcast with Steve Lamb and Mick Edgar. Welcome to episode 4, and we'll talk about some current news events. We'll get into some previews as we enter into the final week of the NRL pre-season, and we start to prepare ourselves for next Thursday's kickoff between the Broncos and the Dragons. So, Steve, how you doing, mate? How's your week been?
How you going, mate? Yeah, well, week's been good. I've just finished my three 12-hour night shifts, and I got a little bit of night lag, as they call it. But yeah, I'm fine, mate. Yeah, some news this week, but we'll get into that. And a week off of trials and pre-season Radamahatta, and 1 week to go till the season proper kicks off at Kogarah Oval.
Yes, so be a big one between the two Wayne Bennett coach sides. So previously the Dragons and now the Broncos. So obviously a lot to look forward to there. So we'll kick off with the news. So what have you got for us this week?
Firstly, some solemn news. Steve Folkes yesterday passed away. Well, today's Wednesday. Yesterday, Tuesday, he passed away from a heart attack at 59, cycling in his home. One of the fittest blokes in rugby league, and he was always talked about in the 80s as one of the fittest blokes. And there wasn't much size to him. He wasn't huge, but he could hit like a jackhammer. That's what they all commented on him about. He could tackle like nothing else, and he was just a workhorse. Good player, played for state and country, and also coached his beloved Bulldogs for quite some time and led them to a premiership. So had a pretty successful career. But yeah, full condolences to family, friends, and Bulldog supporters and admirers of Steve Folkes, who was saddened by yesterday's news.
Yeah, absolutely. It came as a shock to me because, like you said, one of the fittest blokes to probably ever play the game, and especially in an era where a lot of forwards weren't known for being as fit as they are today. So had a good career with the Dogs. So I remember him playing for New South Wales in the infamous can throwing match up at Lang Park, and he got sin binned in that game, and it actually made me laugh. And I watched the game, and he just trotted off amidst a barrage of can throwing at Lang Park. He was the last coach to coach the Bulldogs to premiership success, so obviously he's always going to be a favourite son of the blue and white. And you know, as much as I don't like the club, he was a genuinely good bloke. Was liked by all clubs. So he did some training work with the Tigers, and will obviously be missed and was well respected within the game. So yes, rest in peace to Steve Folkes. A very, very sad and solemn news that he'd passed away at such a young age. So he'll get a great send off from the Bulldogs, and a send off that he thoroughly deserves. So Vale, Steve Folkes.
Agreed, Vale, Steve Folkes. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has signed a 4-year contract with the Warriors. Yeah, up to him. Good luck with that. They call it the place where careers go to die. He hasn't exactly flourished since he's crossed over there from the Roosters. But yeah, good luck to Roger Tuivasa-Sheck with his new 4-year endeavour.
Well, yeah, I think for him it's probably all about the money. So there was rumours at one stage that he was going to sign on with the All Blacks and play rugby union next year in the lead up to the Rugby World Cup in 2019. But that rumour has been put to bed by him signing on to probably be, along with Shaun Johnson, their two marquee players. So whether or not they'll get any bang for their buck and return on their investment as far as the form of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck remains to be seen, because it hasn't produced his best since he's moved across from the Roosters to the Warriors. Has probably been a little bit injury prone, but definitely not the player he once was. And it's hard to say that at such a young age, because we were talking about him as one of the premier fullbacks in the game when he was at the Roosters, and like you said, he's gone to the Warriors where careers go to die, and yeah, his is on its deathbed. So there wouldn't be much of a pulsar at the moment, but hopefully the bulging bank account balance will spur him into action. But history has shown us that players that usually sign long contracts don't usually produce their best. They get into a period of complacency where they just think that they can coast along. And in my opinion, if I was a betting man, I'd bet that he probably wouldn't see out the 4 years of his contract. But that's just me. So onwards and upwards. What else have you got for us?
Just I want to go back on your opinion on long-term contracts. One of your favourite players in the modern game is Boyd Cordner, and he's just signed a 5-year deal last week with the Roosters. What's your opinion on that then?
I don't reckon he'll see that out either. I reckon he'll probably do 3 and end up finishing off at Newcastle with all the rest of the Roosters players. The first player I can remember getting a long-term deal and it fizzled out was Brent Sherwin when he signed on. I think he signed a 5-year deal with the Dogs, and it was about 275 grand a year at the time, and it was talked about as being the first 5-year contract for what was significant money back then, and he didn't see that out. So Boyd Cordner, captain of the Roosters, captain of New South Wales, so he's still only young, and will probably want to be a Rooster for life, but history shows us that the Roosters have been a transit lounge, and I would be a betting man and say that they'd get a good 3 years out of him. And because he's been a little bit injury prone as well, I doubt that the Roosters would stick with him for the duration of that contract. So he wouldn't go to England, but I see him going to somewhere like Newcastle, another NRL club just outside of Sydney and not in Queensland. So just my opinion, most players don't see out 5-year contracts.
He's from up that way anyway. He's from Taree or something, isn't he?
Yeah.
Old Bar or something like that.
Yeah, old mate from Old Bar.
Yeah, that's it. Something like that.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Trial results. Do you want me to go over them?
Well, I guess the main one worth talking about here, as we get a week out, is probably just the Charity Shield. We can go through the rest of the results, but the marquee, like I said, the marquee trials, the Charity Shield. But yeah, by all means, give us the results of all the trials of the past weekend.
I'll get to the Charity Shield. I'll leave that till last because it's probably the most important game of that weekend. Cowboys 16 defeated the Storm 14. Talking points out of that match: the hubris that was the testimonial for Jonathan Thurston and Cameron Smith, and the furor it's caused because it's just opened up a can of worms. They've set a guideline for it, but where do you put a limit on it? There shouldn't be one at all, I don't think, because it's not part of our game. There's never been a testimonial type fixture in the past, I don't think. It's just, whatever it was. They pocketed out of it. Apparently $200,000 each between JT and Cam Smith, as long as some of that's donated to charity. Anyway, Cowboys 16, Storm 14. Jerome Hughes, the Storm fullback, was filling in for Billy Slater, got injured, and now looks like that Billy Slater won't be fit for round 1 either. So that means Munster may have to return to fullback for a week or two. Lachlan Coote lasted 15 minutes. But the positives out of the game for the Cowboys is JT is back. He scored a try, set up 3 others, and Kyle Felt scored a hat-trick. Your mate, you predicted it last week when you named the podcast. Yeah, but your mate Kyle Felt scored a hat-trick.
Oh, yes. Well, I didn't know Jason Taumalolo was such a playmaker that he set up so many points and tries.
You're getting me on a technicality there.
Yeah, he's the
Jonathan
real
Thurston.
Right.
Thurston.
He's the real JT, in my opinion. Just
enough.
back on the testimonial thing. Now, I'm not a socialist by any means or any stretch of the imagination, but in my opinion, this just has rot written all over it. The 2 of the richest players in the game are the only ones that I've known to have a testimonial match where they're picking up a nice, juicy paycheck. Yeah, I understand some of it goes to charity prior to the start of the season, where if we're going to do it for one, we've got to do it for all. And this hasn't been the norm over seasons past. So when other players are coming into the twilight of their career, I don't recall any players who've had great careers have a testimonial match where they want to give them a bit of a send-off golden handshake. Not on.
It hasn't been a thing that we do in rugby league. They get a send-off. If they retire and don't make the grand final, they get a send-off grand final day. That's their testimonial. That's what we do. We don't have testimonial games. We're not like the English Premier League or the European soccer, who, by the way, have massive testimonial games and donate all the money to charity. And these 2 are taking a slice of the pie. And it was kind of karma, I guess, that it was absolutely pissing down rain and they only got 25,000 there. I'm guessing if the weather was good and there was fuck all to do in Brisbane like there normally is, there probably would have been 40 to 50,000 there. but it was pissing down rain, and Brisbane got fickle for some reason.
Yeah, well, that's a first. I'm sure Cameron Smith would have spoken to the weather gods before the match to try and get it to clear up. So just goes to prove that he's not all controlling and he's not reached the status of God just yet because he's unable to change the weather to suit his bank balance. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the testimonial side of it. If it wasn't Cameron Smith and Jonathan Thurston, and Cameron Smith hadn't requested it, in my opinion, it would never have happened for any other player. So I just think, yeah, brought, written all over it. Shouldn't happen. It's got to be equality. One, you're going to do it for one, got to do it for all. By all means, set a certain criteria on the number of games played and maybe potential rep games played. But yeah, just my opinion, shouldn't be on. Back to
you. Moving on, Broncos 26, PNG Hunters 12. Apparently Milford had a good game, set up a couple of tries, played like 35 minutes. He's coming back from was he coming back from a knee or something, a shoulder or something like that? And Matt Lodge had another big game for the Broncos. Warriors 20, Titans 14. Taylor and Elgie looked a bit out of sorts, I was saying, as a half combo. Blake Green had a good game for the Warriors, who might be possibly the buy of the season if they could actually improve the culture of the joint. And apparently the Titans lacked a bit of defensive grunt. Now this game, the Bulldogs 24, the Panthers 10. Penrith were near full strength and the Bulldogs threw out their New South Wales Cup team. The Panthers' spine of Edwards, Maloney, Cleary and Wallace failed to gel. Worrying signs for the Panthers. I like I've said all along, I don't think the dressing room, Griffin has the dressing room. I think they're going to struggle. I can't see the Panthers making the 8. We'll get into our top out later, but I don't think they're in for a good year, to be honest, even with Maloney there.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. I tend to agree with you. I think Hook is on the hook for a potential hot seat when it comes to his coaching career and future, but that is a relationship that's looking more and more like oil and water as the days go by. So it looks like an unhappy place. I know Trent Merrin has poured water on that speculation, but for the rugby league public, even when a player comes out and says they've got the backing of the coach and what have you, it doesn't necessarily hold much weight these days. And the fact that that there's a lot of talk and speculation about Gus and Hook and other people have got stuck into them means usually when there's a little bit of smoke in this situation, there's generally a fair bit of fire.
Yeah, jury's out for Penrith for mine. Everyone's expecting big things because Maloney's gone there, and I don't think much of them, to be honest. Roosters 28, Manly 26. Latrell Mitchell had a big game apparently, looks really fittest he's ever been, scored a couple of tries. Manly led at half-time. Roosters fought back. I'm not sure of the minutes Cronk played or Tedesco played, but yeah, read into that what you will. I don't think Manly are going to do much this year, to be honest. Sharks 24. Sorry.
Just on that, I agree with you on Manly. What I will say, I reckon if Latrell Mitchell can control his temper on the field, he's more than a good chance of actually being one of the centres for New South Wales this year. This kid is that good, and if he keeps the weight off, mate, he's anywhere as destructive as what Greg Inglis was at the same age. So I reckon he'd be a good bet for New South Wales.
I hope he is. I'd love to see him a fit and firing Latrell Mitchell out there for the Blues.
Yeah, it'd
be a good thing. Sharks 24. Sorry?
I was going to say, yeah, back to your reviews.
Sharks 24, Tigers 12. Holmes, Moylan had good games. Apparently Moylan was pretty good at 5'8". Sharks were strong up the guts as they normally are. They led 20-0 at half time. Of course, both sides were full strength in the first. The Tigers, or the Sharks, put their pretty much chopped and changed like you do in a trial in the second half. Tigers pretty much kept a full strength side from what I've been told from punters that were at the game. So, yeah, I think Tigers are in for a long year. Sharks, I think they'll go well. They'll be definitely top 4 or just outside. But, yeah, that was out of that game. Parramatta 26, Knight 6. And out of that, Bevan French had a blinder at fullback. Gufferson yet to come back. I'm saying they're talking Bevan French at fullback. Hayne had a solid hit out in the centres. Set up a try, but he's just coming back. He's actually come out in the media and said, I'm not a star anymore. I think he just wants to take a bit of attention off himself. And then the last and not least, but the Charity Shield, the main game of the pre-season. South 22, Dragons 18. Inglis played 20 minutes. He looked okay. Damien Cook had a massive game. South's both these sides, I think, will figure in the 8. Dragons more so towards the top half of the 8, but like the top half of the bottom 8. But I think South. I changed my mind about Souths. I didn't think much of them, but I think a new culture under Anthony Seibold is just what they needed, and I think I'll get into my top 8 later when we do that. But I think they'll come close to making it. I'm not writing Souths off at all at this point in time.
No, me either. They're one of the sides I've actually talked about as being a bit of a dark horse this year. So, Charity Shield is the trial out of all the trials that has the most passion and importance for the fans. So, I think they'll be sneaky good. I actually watched the news tonight, and Jonathan Thurston on Channel 9, he reckons the Bunnies will be one of those sides that'll be pushing hard for the top 8. So, didn't think he was much of an academic. Might have to change my mind if he keeps agreeing with my opinions. So, I think South will go all right. Now, before we get stuck into the previews, the other bit of news was that the NRL has announced that this year there will be a 9th Immortal announced. So, they reckon there's going to be more transparency around the voting on the selection of who will be the candidates for the 9th Immortal. I mean, the obvious two that spring to mind are Darren Lockyer and Mal Meninga. Obviously, being a Raiders fan, I'd love to see Mal get the nod because he had an illustrious career. Won 3 premierships with the Raiders, went on 4 Kangaroos, 2 as captain. Has won everything there is as far as coaching State of Origin, coaching Australia. The only thing he never did as a player was captain Queensland to a winning State of Origin series.
Really? Meninga never captained Queensland to a winning State of Origin series?
Nope.
Wow. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, so that's when New South Wales in the early 90s were at their dominance, and he was coming. He followed in Wally's footsteps and took over the captaincy once Wally went in. I think he finished in 91 or 92. Mal took over and then was there for a couple of years, but they never won while he was captain.
Yeah, well, the contenders for this one's Meninga, Irvine, Lockyer, Provan, Fittler, and Daly. I'm with you. Not with Lockyer. I don't think Lockyer should get in this time. I think it's between Meninga and Norm Sticks Provan. Provan captain a Dragons side that won 10 premierships. It's unfathomable now. In sporting history, it's been unfathomable since then. I don't think it's happened at all much unless you're talking about Scottish soccer, but that doesn't count. He's had half the premiership trophy named after him. The guy is rugby league through and through. So he played for state and country. I'm going with Norm Provan. My bias aside, I think it'd be great to see the mighty Mal Meninga get nominated as an Immortal, but I think his time will come. But I think Norm Provan should get the nod. That's my opinion. And it's the only time I've ever agreed with Wayne Bennett, to be honest. So it's something new for me, and I'm feeling a bit weird about it.
Yeah, I would feel weird if I ever backed a St George player to win anything. I understand Norm Provan is an absolute legend and icon of the game. Obviously, the trophies model on him and Arthur Summons after one of the grand finals in the 60s. I think it was between the Dragons and the Magpies. But yeah, look, he's obviously an ornament to the game, has been around such a long time, is in fading health, I believe, but his status as one of the game's legends and leading a team through an era of the game actually moving towards professionalism in the way that the rules changed because of the way St George dominated the 60s. He'll have a lasting impact on the game, and his legacy will never be forgotten. So it's hard to argue a case against Norm Proven being the next immortal, but Mal's case is pretty strong. I agree with you. I don't think Lockyer is quite there yet. I think there should be a um, a period of retirement before you're actually eligible, sort of like the Hall of Fame in America. And I think Lockyer, I don't know when Lockyer retired, but I don't know he's been out of the game 10 years yet, has he?
I think it's 5 years. Is it five? No, 8 years. 8 years. I think he's been out 8 years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, I think the minimum part of selection criteria, you should be out of the game. I know Andrew Johns probably wasn't, or he definitely wasn't when he was named in 2012, but I think it should be longer to give uh, some of the players who went before these guys in an era of brutal toughness and where the physicality and the absolute violence of the game was unparalleled to what it is today. I think guys like Norm Proven should have been considered before even Andrew Johns, in my opinion. There should be a 10-year minimum retirement factor that you're out of the game before you're actually eligible to be nominated as a potential immortal. Just an opinion. But that's what this show is all about giving our opinions on everything rugby league related.
My opinion with Joey versus Lockyer is Lockyer was a great player in the game. Joey, he was a revolutionary. He brought in things that other players weren't doing, like the banana kick, just for instance, and a few other things. And for a halfback, he tackled like a back rower. He wasn't a standard player. He stood out amongst the crowd, and he dominated where it counted. He dominated Origin. The grand finals that the Knights played in, he dominated. He was just one of those players. I totally agree with his vote as being an immortal. Whereas as Lockyer, as brilliant a player he wasn't, he played brilliant in the game. He didn't, whereas, you know what I mean? Johns revolutionised the game. Lockyer played brilliant in the game. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think Johns would still be an immortal now because he would have retired over 10 years ago. So there's no questioning his status. Although when you look at in terms of overall success, Lockyer had a far more successful career with Brisbane than what Johns did with Newcastle. Johns won one legitimate premiership in 2001. He won his other one in 97 in a split competition, which we all know the Broncos would have won in a canter had the competitions been combined, because they were light years ahead in 97, and the Knights were more of a battle of working men's type team. And I doubt if the two had met whether or not Newcastle would have had the firepower to match Brisbane in 1997. And Newcastle's only other premiership came in 2001 against Parramatta, whereas Lockyer went on to win in 98 and 2000 and 2006 with the Broncos. So he's probably achieved, in terms of overall success, would have a higher winning percentage, but was part of a team that probably had more big name shining light players around him for a longer period of time. Obviously, when you look at the 2001 Knights, while everybody said they were underdogs to Parramatta, on paper, they probably had a better side that year when they had Andrew Johns, they had Ben Kennedy, they had Denny Buderus, Matt Gidley, Mark Hughes, Robbie O'Davis. So Darren Albert, they still had some of the game's elite players for that time, whereas Parramatta were guys like Michael Buettner and Jason Taylor were the hearts. They were good, but they weren't in the class of Andrew Johns. So whilst Johns deserves to be there, I think Lockyer has a pretty strong case as well. But I'm not sure how much of the fan participation is going to matter in the voting for the next immortal, but all that criteria will be revealed in the coming weeks and months as we get closer to actually getting down to a list of finalists. So it should be interesting, and one of those things will evolve throughout the season, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I would like to see it down between Meninga and Norm Proven. I think that's a pretty good duo to be selected as the top two finalists.
Yeah, I agree. And my last comment on it is any player that can make Sean Rudder look like a first grader deserves to be an immortal.
Yep. So the only drawback to Norm Proven is Peter Dennis actually follows this team, and that's actually probably something that you would have to subtract off the voting criteria. That if you've got absolute pinheads following the Dragons, then you've got to think, well, Should he get there or shouldn't he? But it'll all sort itself out in the wash as the season progresses.
All comes out in the wash, man.
Yep, absolutely. So we can move on to the previews. I don't think we've got any other major NRL news.
Nah.
Nothing else has come up in the last 25 minutes. So we move along to the previews. Now, I'm happy to kick this off.
Go for it, man.
All right, so the first preview that I'll have a look at is the Gold Coast Titans. So a lot of people are picking the Titans to run last in 2018. I don't think it'll be the case. I don't think they'll make the 8. They don't have the quality of the squad to get that high up the ladder. But I don't think they'll be as bad as everybody thinks. I think with some of their gains, I think we've actually already covered these guys though. We have in previous weeks. So I remember looking at this list and going, oh. So I'll move along to the Penny Panthers. Now here's a team who's hitting the headlines for all the wrong reasons. So there looks like there's player discontent. We don't know what the relationship looks like between Gus Gould and Peter Griffin. Is it Peter Griffin? Anthony Griffin.
Yeah.
There you go. I was waiting for that. So the Penrith Panthers, obviously the big off-season signing was James Maloney, who's the premiership whisperer, who's been with the Storm, the Roosters, the Sharks, and has won premierships with all three, and is now moving to the foot of mountains out at Penrith in the hopes that he can actually deliver premiership glory to the Panthers for the first time since that mighty grand final win over the Roosters in 2003. I was at that game, and I don't follow either side, but that was one of the great modern moments in rugby league history. So it's been a long time for the Panthers since then. So they've been in the premiership wilderness for 15 years now. And looking at this team, I don't know that they're actually going to make the top 8 this year. I definitely don't think it's their year to win the premiership. I know other commentators talk them up as a potential premiership threat, but with their gains, they've only really picked up James Maloney, and the only other named player of note would be Tyrone Phillips from Canterbury Bankstown, and even he's a bit of a fringe first grader. So as far as their losses, they've lost Mitch Rain to the Gold Coast. They've lost Peter Hiku to the Warriors. They've lost Bryce Cartwright to the Gold Coast. Obviously, Delta Goodrum's gone over to the Cronulla Sharks. Darren Nichols to the Dragons. Tamari Martin left mid-season. He's up at the Cowboys. And there was talk of, was it Peachy actually going, Tyrone Peachy?
Yeah, there's talk of him. There's talk of him going to the Titans.
Yeah, that he was going to leave Penrith and go to the Titans as well. So there's a few gaps in their squad as far as depth goes. Pardon me. They've still got some quality players in, obviously, Trent Merrin. They've got him now. I don't know if he's as chubby as since he's broken up with Sally Fitzgibbon. So they've got Cleary in the halves. They've got Peachy, who's not a bad player, out in the centre. So they've still got some quality players in key positions. But, they've got Campbell Regan Campbell Gillard. That's it. So I can't remember his name. Yeah, he's not a bad player. So they've got some quality, and they can produce on their day, but they can also be very mediocre at times. So they're not a team that I'm expecting to do great things this year, and they're not a team that I'll be watching with any great interest. They went on a bit of a run last year, and they had a decent finish in the 2016 season, only to be eliminated by Canberra. But it remains to be seen what the losses of Bryce Cartwright and Delta Goodrum do to the Panthers' chances. So obviously there was unrest between Moylan, Cartwright, and Anthony Griffin. So we don't know if it was a bad attitude from the players or whether or not it was the way that Anthony Griffin had approached the management of the team from a personality point of view. But I don't think they'll make the top 8 this year. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I agree. I can't see him doing anything. Like I said in our first episode, what the hell was Gus thinking when he ditched Cleary for Griffin? If he ditched Cleary for a more prominent coach or something, I'd get it. But who the fuck is Griffin? Look, what's he done? He coached the Broncos for a while, and they didn't even want to keep him. As soon as Bennett said, "I'm looking for a job," they always sent him out of there. Um, yeah, I can't see him doing much. Peachy will leave. Griffin doesn't have dressing room. I dare say that Griffin will get if they have some. If they don't win a game in the first, 5 rounds, I dare say Griffin might be the first coach to get the arse. Got some talent there, but I think it's just been chopped and changed. Gould has wanted instant success from day one. He's had a 5-year plan, but he's chopped and changed the place since he's been there. And I just can't see them doing. Yo, you there?
Yeah, still here. Don't know what happened there. It's just must have cut out for a second. So, yeah, look, I agree with you on the Panthers. I think that the whole 5-year plan is going to evolve into a 7-year plan or become the 10-year plan, and barring an unearthing of elite talent through their juniors and a potential change of coach, then I don't see anything changing for them over the next 3 to 5 years. I just think they'll still be in the premiership wilderness. They might make a bit of a charge here or there and finish outside the top 4 one season in 5, but I don't expect much more than that, and I think everything will remain the same as it has been for the last 15 years out at the foot of the mountains. They're still probably celebrating that premiership glory, and as great as it was, they need to get back on the horse and get back into the race, and I don't think they've got the squad to be able to compete with the big guns this year.
What is it with coaches coming in or administrators coming in and saying a 5-year plan? What's the go with a 5-year plan? I don't get it. The most successful clubs, they don't talk about a 5-year plan. They get the players in that they want. They piss off the players that they don't need, that aren't doing them any good, and they get on with it, and they get some success. I've never heard once Bellamy say, "I've got a 5-year plan at Melbourne." He's built a structure around a club and kept it. Like, he's lucky enough that he's only lost Inglis, but he kept that structure around the club, added to it, brought in what he needed, and went on with it. And most of those successful clubs have been like that. I never heard Flanagan say he had a 5-year plan. They won the comp in 2016. You know what I mean? It's just retarded.
Oh, look, I agree with you. I think it's just done to buy them some time and give the fans that perpetual light at the end of the tunnel. But it's never going to be attainable because it's always just out of reach, and they think, oh, next year. So, in my opinion, with the players that they've had go through the club in the last 3 or 4 years, they should have been a lot closer than what they are. So, and everybody views Gus as some sort of demigod of rugby league, and they all bow to his knowledge in the media of being the guy who's a know-it-all and a soothsayer when it comes to predictions and things like that. Well, yeah, I'm not sure he's got the Midas touch anymore. He may have had it once upon a time, but I don't think he's got it at Penrith, and I think that he's just buying himself time and probably collecting a really nice paycheck in the process. So, in my opinion, I don't think even in a 10-year plan that the Panthers will come away with a premiership within that time frame. So, yep. That's my opinion on the Panthers. I think they'll finish about 11th this year, so we'll have a look at that and give it a more in-depth rundown when we go through our top 8. Now, the other team I was going to preview before we hand over for your ones are the Sydney Roosters. Now, here's a team that's on everybody's lips. So, for all the right and wrong reasons, depending if you're a fan or not a fan, still known as the Transit Lounge because of the players that they sign. Most people don't know how they get them under the salary cap sombrero. Obviously, the big 2 marquee signings picked up for this year are James Tedesco and Cooper Cronk, which makes them automatically a premiership force. So they have no real weaknesses. When I look at this squad on paper, I struggle to find how they would fit such an imposing squad under the current salary cap. And when people tell me they released a few players here or there, it just doesn't equal the sum of its parts. And they reckon they've still got $700,000 or $800,000 to spend.
The sombrero.
That's right, the sombrero. It just doesn't make sense to me. We should have had a background track playing for that one for the Mexican hat dance. So obviously the big gains were James Tedesco and Cooper Cronk. Now, the losses, there's been a few. Kane Evans has gone to Parramatta, Michael Gordon up to the Gold Coast. A plethora of players have gone up the motorway to Newcastle, which include Aidan Guerra, Sean Kenny-Dowell was a mid-season move, Mitchell Pearce and Connor Watson have also joined the Knights. So they've lost some experience, but in my opinion, I still don't think they'll win it this year. I think the weight of expectation and sometimes having a team full of champions as opposed to a champion team, pardon the cliched talk there, will ring true for the Roosters. It remains to be seen how Cooper Cronk fits into the halves pairing with Keary, and James Tedesco has shown that he's sometimes not as durable as he needs to be and may not get through a full season due to bad knees and can be injury prone. Now, there's probably a couple of players that haven't stepped up in their time at the Roosters. We've got Boyd Cordner back. Now, he's also been a bit injury prone. They've got that perennial fucking knucklehead Blake Ferguson on the wing. And, sometimes he's actually more of a liability than an asset to any team. So, remains to be seen how he'll go this year. They're obviously, I think they'll finish top four, and I'll be shocked if they don't. And I think if they don't, then Robinson will be out the door. He'll be looking for a new gig, and Nick Politis will be applying the pressure because there's going to be a lot of pressure around Bondi Junction this year to make sure that the Roosters, get back to their winning ways, or at least in the top 2 or 3 teams in the comp come season's end. And I don't think anything less than a grand final appearance would be acceptable for Nick Politis and Roosters fans based on the squad that they've assembled. But there's just, for some reason, something missing. I don't know. It's a lack of spirit with this team because they seem to be more like a team of mercenaries than a team that's actually come through the junior ranks and grown with stability. Now, they've got other players like Latrell Mitchell, who I'm a massive fan. I've loved to have him down at Canberra and showed last year that he's got the potential to be a really destructive player when his mind's on the job. He got dropped at one stage because of a poor attitude. So I think that if he gets his mindset right and he keeps the weight off, he'll have a fantastic year this year. He could be a 20-try player if he gets through the season fit and uninjured. And if he's going that well leading up to Origin, I think there's an 80% chance he's going to be there in the centres for the Blues this year. So I think that the loss of Mitchell Pearce has probably pissed off a lot of fans because they believe that he was one of the stalwarts of the club and had played over 200 games for the Roosters. So there's a lot to back up that story. And for a player who'd had given such loyal service to be dumped unceremoniously as he was, it just shows the nature of the Transit Lounge being back in full effect at the Roosters. So I think they'll finish third in the regular season, and they'll be there pushing on the prelim to get into the grand final. Not sure if they'll get there, but look, they're going to win much more than they lose this year. I think they're going to have a blistering attack, and there's going to be some games where Cronk absolutely dominates. So my prediction for the Roosters is a top 3 finish, but I don't think they're going to win the premiership. So just my thoughts, mate. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I got them about 3rd or 4th. I had them first there for a little bit. I bought into the hype of the bookies having them favourites. They got an easy draw. That's the only thing going for them. I think it's going to take some time. They're going to have some teething weeks. I think that might take about 10 rounds until the spine is right and Cronk has the side where he wants them to be, because pretty much Cronk is the second coach to Robinson now. He's pretty much, Robinson goes through coffee and Cronk's out there telling him what he wants to do, what he wants them to do. So I think they'll have some teething problems early on, but yeah, they'll figure in the top 4. 3rd or 4th is my prediction. Roosters fans, they'll be still a little bit upset about Mitchell Pearce, especially if he plays well for the Knights, but they'll get over it. They're used to it. They're in and out. I think that side that won in 2013 had a fair few of them that played together for some time. So there was a little bit of a team culture there, but I don't think it's there anymore. And I totally agree with Latrell Mitchell. I'd love to have him at the Raiders, and I think he's going to figure in Origin this year if he keeps his fitness and performance up.
Yep. Now, there's a bit of an oxymoron there when you mentioned Roosters and spine in the same sentence. Just doesn't make sense to me.
But
That's right. So, well, there's the two teams I've got previews for this week, mate. Who are you having a look at for us?
the Tigers. We haven't gone over the Tigers. Their ins for this year are Mahe Whenua, Peter Goddard, Benji Marshall's back, the prodigal son, Ben Medellino, Russell Packer, Tane Milne, Chris McQueen, Josh Reynolds, Robbie Rechow, and Corey Thompson. They've lost Matt Ballin, Justin Hunt, Joel Edwards, Kyle Lovett, Jack Littlejohn, Jeremy Marshall King, Jordan Rankin, James Tedesco, Ava Fungal, whatever, and Aaron Woods. There's talk about Cleary working magic with this side. I can't see it happening. The first trial the Tigers played, it looked like Brooks and Reynolds had been playing together for ages, but I can't see it lasting. The bonus for the Tigers this year is they have they've got mongrel in the forward pack. They've lacked mongrel for some time, so they've got a lot of mongrel. Cleary with Chris McQueen and Madaleno and Packer, a lot of mongrel in that forward pack. The spine probably needs a lot of work. I can't see them doing much, to be honest. They'll win a couple of games here and there, but their forward pack will be their biggest asset. I can't see. Look, Josh Reynolds had a bumpy year in 2014, made the grand final with the Dogs, but in all honesty, he's done fuck all since. Nothing. Even at the Dogs, he was injured or he just didn't look like he wanted to be part of a team. Maybe that will change. I don't know. Luke Brooks, when he first started in grade, everyone was, or even I was raving about him, saying like, get Mitchell Pearce out of the Blues and get Brooks in there. But over time, he proved to be bog average halfback. I expect that to remain the same. Whether Benji Marshall can come in and be a good influence for them is yet to be seen. The biggest problem for the Tigers starting the season is their draw. The first 5 rounds, they have the Roosters, the Storm, the Broncos, the Eels, and the Storm. So if that doesn't deflate any aspirations after that, then I don't know what would. I can't see them winning any of those games. They'll be 0-5.
Yep, same.
They'll have a go against the Roosters, but they'll be deflated by that. By round 5, they'll be deflated, and it'll be a work in progress from there. And by that point, they'll have no points on the board, and it'll be a struggle to catch up with the rest of the lineup. I think they'll finish 15th or 16th. They'll battle it out with the Titans for the spoon.
I think you're right. I actually think they'll be wooden spooners. I think there are way too many holes in this team. Obviously, Cleary looks to have cleared the decks of a lot of the trash. I don't mean that personally against any particular player, but Mitchell Moses and James Tedesco are big losses. Mitchell Moses has shown that he's an elite level halfback who's probably going to have a fantastic year with Parramatta. James Tedesco is the current Blues fullback, so he'll kick on to bigger and better things with the Roosters and be with a team who's going to be competing in every game. Sharon Woods has gone to the Dogs. That's probably a plus for Tigers fans. He's the softest marshmallow forward in the game, and he won't be anything like the other long-haired Jeff Robinson they're looking to replace over at the Bulldogs. I just think he's massively overrated. Wanted way too much money for the sort of output that he gives you. So for me, I think reckon Cleary that thought, well, he's not on the train, so he can get off. And I don't think they lose that much with him, to be honest. All the other players I don't really know too much about when it comes to their losses, and obviously Josh Reynolds is probably the biggest signing they've picked up. Now, Lola here, he's not a bad player. They got him mid-season last year, so he can actually be a good running half. So he'll be there. Now, Benji Marshall, all we know is that if he's playing against the Raiders, the Tigers will win because he's never lost to the Raiders in the entirety of his career, stretching back to 2003 or whenever it was that he actually made his first grade debut. So it doesn't matter what team's jersey he's wearing, he always beats Canberra. So if they want to win one game this year, they just need to roll him out against the Raiders and they'll be assured the 2 points. comments on Luke Brooks, I think, are spot on. I don't think he's progressed much at all. I think Moses made the right decision by going, and the Tigers have been lumped with a bit of dead wood with Luke Brooks. I don't think we'll see much of him, and it'll be Reynolds that's more running the show and providing the inspiration and passion for the Tigers. And he'll probably do it at the same level he did at the Dogs. But yeah, Luke Brooks, probably one of the below average halfbacks in the NRL at the moment. So those are my thoughts on the Tigers. I think they'll be wooden spooners this year. So mate, back to you for your next preview.
Well, just before I get to the next preview, I think they want to keep Cleary in there for as long as they can, but it's not going to happen. Marina Go, the CEO of the Tigers, has already illustrated recently at a function here. She likes to get on the clarets and have a go. So I think there's still a bit of still a bit of unprofessionalism up at the top level. So I think Cleary will see out his 2 years, grab his money and piss off, and go to the Roosters. They'll get rid of Robinson, and Cleary Co will take over the Roosters in 2020.
Oh, I like that crystal ball prediction. That actually has a bit of merit to it. So we're saying he's go like the Shiraz, does she? Like getting on it.
Yeah, apparently she likes getting on it and having a dig at other GMs or CEOs at the same function she's at. But that's all speculation at the moment. Okay, the Manly Sea Eagles. They've brought in Lachlan Croker. Oh my God, Dally M special there. Jack Gosieski, Joel Thompson, to Tafawafo Sipley from the Warriors. They've lost Blake Green, Peter Godinay, Bretton Lawrence retired, Steve Maddai retired, couldn't shoulder it anymore, and Brett Stewart retired.
Yeah.
Snakes out of the building. A full lineup of the Eagles that look like this. Trbojevic, Walker, Kelly in the centres, on the wings, Tafua and Uwade, Lachlan Croker, or possibly Hastings at 5'8", DCE, Jake Trbojevic, Sirenen, Joel Thompson. Has that contract been ratified at all?
Yeah, we go through this every week. Yes, it has. He lives on the peninsula now.
Okay, no worries. Peter Dennis must be crushed. Darcy Lussick, Episode Coruscant, and Martin Tapau. Look, on paper, it looks like a good side. The foil in the engine was Blake Green last year. They had Blake Green, and he gave Daly Cherry Evans the space. I don't think either Croker or Hastings will do that. Otherwise, they've got some good players in this side. I don't have them making the 8. I think the bench is a little bit light on. Lewis Brown, Fanua Blake, Lloyd Perrott, and Frank Winterstein. That is, the bench you presume they'd have. Yeah, I can't see Manly making the 8. I think they'll have a dismal year. Only because of Blake Green. Blake Green came into the club last season and they were on fire. Because he allowed to create like the free space for Daly Cherry Evans to do what he does. And
yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think if teams are not worrying so much about who's playing 5'8", they're really going to hone in on Cherry Evans and they'll go after him. And I don't think Dylan Walker's fit for round 1. I think he's had 5
I think he's out for the first 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah, he's had 5 off-season surgeries on ankle, neck, and shoulder. So he will be missing for a little while. Now, they're probably going to miss his chippy mouth and his cocky attitude when he's on the field. And he's one of those players that gets under the skin of opposing teams and fans. I know what he did last year when they played down in that game in Canberra, and the Raiders players just lost their heads because he was giving them a gobful the whole game and ended up kicking the winning penalty goal in Golden Point. So it cost us the game. It was a killer. But he's one of those players. He's pretty quick. He can motor. It remains to be seen whether or not he comes back with 100% confidence from ankle surgery. I again saw him on the news tonight saying that he wasn't feeling as confident as he needed to be after these surgeries, especially the one on his ankle. So it's taking him a while to get back to full fitness. I reckon round 4 might be a bit optimistic for him, given what he said on the news. So if that news is as fresh as today, then I reckon it could be round 6 before we see him back. And then usually takes a player a good 4 rounds to get back into the swing of it and get back to their best. So they might not see a fit and firing Dylan Walker until round 10. And he's one of those players I reckon they're going to desperately need because he could end up going into 5'8". He has played there before if they want any type of decent foil for Daly Cherry Evans. The forward pack looks all right. Marty Tapau, Jake Trebojevic, Coruscant at hooker he's a sneaky little bugger, and he's very quick and very crafty out of dummy half. So teams, he always scouts the opposing try line when he's 5 metres out. He's going to have a go at least one play in every 6 to get across. And unless your defence moves up quick off the try line, he'll get you every time. So obviously got Turbo Tom's probably going to be on the wing for New South Wales. He's one of their real shining lights, and I expect him to have a pretty good season. So I'm in with you. I don't think they'll make the 8. They'll have their fair share of wins though. They just won't have enough to get them across the line compared to some of the quality teams above them. So I think the loss of Blake Green and that lack of creativity they'll have with either Hastings or Croker will cost them when they're getting into tight situations. They'll try and lump it all on Daly Cherry Evans, and teams will just hone in on him and they'll build him out of the game. So yeah, another year of missing the finals for Manly.
Yeah, can't argue that. I agree. And the final team preview for the Blindside podcast is the one, the only, the Melbourne Storm. And they've gained Sandor Earl. Oh, no, they haven't, because he did an ACL and he's out for the year. Damn shame that. Ryan Hoffman, the Warriors. Cooper Johns from the Seagulls. Sam Cassiano, the Bulldogs. Patrick Kafusi from the Cowboys. Caleb Milne from Rugby. And Ryan Pepin, who's Isaac or whatever, from the Tigers. Billy Walters from the Brisbane East. That is Kevin Walter's son. He had a good game, actually. He scored a try against the Cowboys the other night. Billy Walters.
Apparently they were talking him up, saying that he looks like a good prospect.
He does, actually. From what I've seen, he looked okay. They've lost Jesse Arthurs, Cooper Cronk, Slade Griffin, Tohu Harris, Jordan McLean, big loss. Mark Nichols and Robbie Rochow. Well, they're going to be there or thereabouts. They've just got too much class, the way they're coached, the way the club's run. A full lineup looks like Slater, Addo-Carr, Vunivalu, Chambers, Curtis Scott, Munster at 5'8", Croft, who seems to just be a bloody Cooper Cronk clone anyway, so they're not going to miss much. Dale Finucane, Kafusi, Hoffman, Glasby, Smith, and Bromwich. I think they'll miss McLean. Not sure on how Hoffman's going to go this year. He's getting a bit on.
Yeah, I think they'll miss Tohu Harris as well.
Yeah. They got Bromwich, Kenny Bromwich, Asafa Solomona. Guy's a beast on the bench. They got, a fit and firing Sam Cassiano and Christian Welch. That would be close to their full strength lineup taking the field. Look, they're first, second, or third. It's going to be even between them or the Cowboys for the minor premiership. I think the juggernaut will roll on, but they'll be hard to stop. I think their losses are minimal, to be honest, especially seeing what Brady Croft has done so far in the preseason. I don't see them missing Cronk at all. They'll just get on with it. And as long as Slater and Smith are there fit and firing, they'll run the rest of this team and they'll be doing good things. And yeah, first, second, or third is my prediction. I can't see them winning a comp again because it's so hard to back up. I think it might get to them by the grand final qualifier, but strange things have happened. But this is a side that has wanted a back-to-back premiership for a long time, since this generation of your Smiths, your Slaters, your Cronks and everything. They've craved it. And ever since Bellamy's been there, I don't think they'll get it this year. But they'll go close.
Yeah, I think they're definitely top 4 material as well. I think the loss of, like you said, Jordan McLean is a big one, but the addition of a slimmed down and firing Sam Cassiano can't be understated. That guy is just magical when it comes to getting offloads away in traffic. So He did a great job of that with the Bulldogs when he was probably 20 kilos overweight. Now that he's slimmed down, he could be this could be his most destructive season since he came in as a player. So I expect big things from Sam Cassiano this year, to the point where he could be one of the surprise packets for the year. So I reckon he'll go great guns, barring any major injury, because he has been injury prone in the past. And obviously, when you look at the different coaching methods of what was going on at Canterbury, where he was massively overweight, and he gets down to Melbourne, and by the start of the season, he looks unbelievably fit. So again, they've got their bases covered with Smith and Slater, so they're the old heads that they need to lead him around on the field. Munster's getting to that elite level. They've got Bellamy coaching the team, he's got that sort of Bill Belichick from the New England Patriots feel about him, where nothing short of perfection is expected every week, and that every player is expected to do their job, and they do it because they know there's consequences for poor performance, and being held accountable by an elite coach like that is something that keeps the Melbourne Storm firing at an elite level for the last 15 years. They've been competitive with it. Apart from the only season they were off was the season they were stripped of points and literally could not make the finals, was the only season that they lost a few here and there. But since then, they build back up. They come to the point where they're elite every year. That'll obviously change once Smith and Slater goes, but it's a real plug-and-play system with the Storm, that they find these players, like you said, that they can just plug in and replace elite players, and it seems like nothing has ever changed. It's always been that way. So they've got a great structure at that club. They've got a great spirit at that club. They've got two future immortals at that club. They've got one of the best coaches of all time at that club, and that's everything they need to maintain their success into the immediate future. So I'm thinking they will finish second this year. So, and that probably leads us to our top 8 predictions, or are we going to do the whole comp or just the top 8?
Do the whole comp.
Alrighty. So, do you want to fight or want me to go first?
I'm easy, man. Do you want to unfurl first, or do you want me to do?
No, I'll kick it off. So, if we're going, we'll do the bottom up approach. So, leave the best till last. So, start from team number 16. My team coming 16th is the West Tigers. I just don't think they've got the guns to be able to match it with many teams, and I think the first 5 rounds is critical. And I think what you said before was spot on about them being 0-5 after the first round. It's very, very, not even very difficult. It'll be impossible to come back from that to even make a charge to get anywhere above 12th. So I think they'll be deflated by 5 rounds, and I don't see them winning more than 4 or 5 games all year. So I think they'll be 16th. I think the Raiders will be 15th. I just don't see what's changed. So in my opinion, you need to turn over probably about 10% of your squad each year to keep a freshness about them. They don't have that, and unless Caesar and Austin can fire in the absence of Josh Hodgson, I don't think that they'll be competing for a top 8 spot. I think they'll be actually well off the pace, and they look like they're unfit. Like there's several players who are unfit. So it remains to be seen how they react. And this will be Stewart's 5th year in charge of the club. He needs a miracle, in my opinion, and a really good run without injuries and low representation this year for them to be anywhere near the top 8. 14th, I've got the Warriors, so not much said about them. I think that the squad has improved since last year. They'll probably win a few more at home that'll keep them off the bottom of the table, but I don't see them making the top 8 either, so they're in at 14th for me. 13th, I've got the Gold Coast Titans. So whilst I think they'll have an improved season with Ryan James at the helm, I don't think that they'll get close to the top 8 either. 12th, I'm going to go with the Bulldogs. Now they could finish closer to 16th. I think it's only that the quality of the teams below them keeps them that high on the ladder. I don't know that Dean Pay will have a great year and a lot of success in his first year as coach. So, in my opinion, I think the Bulldogs will finish 12th. 11th, I'm going to go with Manly. I think they'll, as we just alluded to, they'll they lack some creativity in the halves. Now, Daly Cherry Evans is obviously an elite player, but he just doesn't have the support around him to be able to get Manly across the line into 8th position. 10th, I've got the Brisbane Broncos. I'm not convinced that they'll do much at all this year, to be honest. I think that their time as an elite club is probably over, and I think a lot of that is due in part to Wayne Bennett probably not adapting to the modern game as quickly as he needed to. He hasn't done a great deal since he fucking shafted the Knights, and since he left that club in a horrible state. The old make up your own mind.
He went for instant success, and he brought the old boys in.
Yeah,
and it didn't work.
So I'm not convinced that they'll have a great season. And this could be a swan song for Wayne Bennett if the Brisbane Broncos shit the bed. So, and I fully expect them to do that. So that's 10th position. 9th position, I'll give that to the Penrith Panthers. They said they'll win a few, they'll lose a few. I don't think that they have enough club harmony to get into the top 8. 8th position, I've got the Newcastle Knights. I reckon there's a lot of club spirit there, and with a much improved roster, primarily with signings from the Roosters, they'll have an improved season. They'll get a lot of people out to watch them week in, week out. They're more like a Premier League team that, regardless of where they are on the ladder, they still get a solid support. So I think that they'll have, in my opinion, what would be considered an outstanding year if they make the top 8 compared to being wooden spooners the last couple of years. At 7th position, I've got the Bunnies, who I said before I think will be sneaky good. So, and I stand by that. I just think that Dane Gagai and Greg Inglis coming into that team, and guys like Crichton, like they've got Alex Johnston, if Adam Reynolds can stay healthy, he's going to go a long way to getting them into the top 8. So I think they'll be a lot better than what everybody thinks. 6th position, I've got. Now, this was a tough one between the Southern Sydney sides, but I'm going to go with the Dragons. So, and I don't think there'll be much in it. I think that will be a lot better than what people predict them to be. They've got some Ben Hunt and Gareth Widdop in the halves will prove to be one of the stronger halves combos this year. And I think with a solid forward pack and some decent depth in the backs, they should be able to handle representative and origin period quite well. And I think they'll finish 6th. 5th, I've got the Cronulla Sharks. And this is a team that could probably win it from 5th. If Moylan fires and Valentine Holmes goes well, they've still got a really strong, no-nonsense, hard as nails forward pack led by Paul Gallen, but they've still got guys like Wade Graham, Luke Lewis, Fafita. Like there's a lot to like about this team still, and they're on the verge. Like they could be interchangeable in the top 4, but they're still an elite side. They'll probably lose a couple of unexpected games, but I still think that they'll finish around 5th. 4th, I've got the Parramatta Eels. I think that they've improved their roster. I think Jared Hayne has had some of the pressure taken off him by playing in the centres. Once they get Gutherson back and they've got Bevan French, then they're going to be one of the faster teams in the comp. They've got an elite set of halves in Corey Norman and Mitchell Moses, and they were starting to show by the end of last season that they were one of the best halves combos in the comp. So, in my opinion, Parramatta with Kane Evans in the forwards, and they've got Bo Scott back. He's fit, so he'll give them some leadership there along with Tim Manor. I think they'll have a really good season, and Eels fans should set their sights pretty high. In 3rd position, I've got the Sydney Roosters. Obviously, with the addition of Tedesco and Cronk, that puts them in the elite class. Look, they're interchangeable within the top 1 or 2 teams, so I think they'll finish 3rd. I think the lack of spirit and maybe team camaraderie there will be the one thing that might cost them a premiership this year. In 2nd spot, I've got the Melbourne Storm, the defending premiers. They'll go close to backing up. We say each year that they don't look as strong as they did the previous year, and they come out and prove us wrong where they're making the grand final or they're premiers. So I expect nothing less than a grand final appearance from the Melbourne Storm again. In 1st position, I've got the North Queensland Cowboys with Jonathan Thurston, Matt Scott back in the team, and with the addition of Jordan McLean. This is a fucking powerhouse team. Everybody should have, they're probably the shortest odds they've been to win a competition since they entered the premiership in 1995. But Jordan McLean just takes this team to a whole other level as far as their depth in the forward pack. Taumalolo is the real JT these days. So they've got Morgan and Thurston in the halves. So they're strong all across the park. Although Kane Linnett is out, 10 to 14 weeks with an injury?
Yeah, I heard that. He was out 10 to 14 weeks.
So they should be able to replace him without losing too much. But in my opinion, they'd be very, very hard to go past as the premiers. And I'm going to ride on your coattails with your prediction that they won't lose a home game all year, even during the Origin period. So that's my premiership ladder for 2018. So bring it on.
Yeah, I disagree with a couple of things, but I agree with most of it. My finishes look like this. At the bottom, I've got the Tigers in 16th. I think there's too much work to be done, too many new combinations, and I think the culture of the club is rat shit. Brooks and Cleary, Brooks and Reynolds. It might work a couple of weeks here and there, but I don't think it's going to work as a whole. In 15th, I've got the Titans. They've got a good set of halves, but whether they gel or not, and not a lot of depth. And a new coach in there. I think Garth Brennan's going to take a little time to fit into the role. Cartwright's there, but he's a good offloader, but he's a turnstile in defence. If you're talking about main players, you've got Michael Gordon here at fullback. He'll add a bit of experience, but I can't see them winning a lot. I got Manly at 14th. They will, missing Blake Green. I don't know. I'm not sure about Manly. They could either finish 14th or finish 10th or something, but they'll be round about there. Blake Green gone. Cherry Evans won't find the same spark. They're shining a light as the Trbojevic brothers, and unfortunately, what's his face? Your mate Dylan Walker in the centres. They're their best players, and Api Coruscant at number 9. I can't see him doing much. Newcastle Knights in 13th. I think there'll be a lot of spirit behind this side. Got some good signings. I think Pearce in the halves with Connor Watson will do the place well. There'll be a lot of. I think Nathan Brown's a good coach. He's just had a bunch of shit to deal with. I think he'll do a little bit with his side. 12th, the Warriors. Blake Green signing, and then you got Tuivasa-Sheck staying. They've added Blair and Blake from the Storm.
Did you ever quit in front of Blair?
Would you ever quit in front of Blair? Added Blair and Tohu Harris from the Storm. Bit of mongrel there. They'll win some games, not much. The 11th, I got the Bulldogs. I think the Bulldog spirits will be back. They won't make the 8, but I think they'll win some games. The old guard is going to be back in the club. In 10th, I've got the Broncos. Like I said, they don't have that player anymore. They don't have a Hodges. They don't have a Corey Parker. They're lacking that player. They've got some talent in the side, and it all comes down to what Cody Nikorima and Milford do in the halves. Darius Boyd, he's a week-to-week proposition with his hammies, and I think Wayne Bennett has lost touch with the game. So I think the Broncos will be 10th. Penrith will be 9th, only because they have Nathan Cleary. And first and foremost, with James Maloney, that two alone, even if the culture in the club is shit and Griffin gets the arse, I think they will just fall outside of the 8. They'll win some games. Still got some quality there. Trent Merrin, Cameron Regan Gillard, and the like, Peter Wallace. But I can't see them figuring in the finals. In 8th, I've got Souths. I think under Anthony Seibold, we're going to see a new lease of life. Still got the Poms there, and Crichton, and Damien Cook looks good in number 9. The Burgess brothers look fit and firing. And then Sam Burgess on top of that. If they can get Reynolds back in at halfback, like consistently without injury, they will do a lot this year. got the back line's pumping with Inglis, Dan Gagai, and Alex Johnson at fullback. Going to cause some damage and score some points.
You got Cody Walker as well, good player.
Cody Walker as well, whether you rate him or not. Some do, some don't. In seventh, I've got the Raiders. I think they're going to have a good year. It's an even year, and that's not all I'm going on. But they're going to be fit and firing. They look fit. They look ready to atone for last year's disappointment. And Josh Hodgson won't be back till June, July. If he does come back, I think Caesar and Austin will take control. The only concerns I have is Jack White and at fullback. The rest of the side will just flow. I think Boyd and Paula up front are going to lead the way. Charlie Gubb on the bench, if we can keep him in for 26 rounds, then, good thing. He's another big bopper coming off. We don't lose much. In six, I've got the Dragons. I think they're going to be in for a good year. Adding Hunt and James Graham to the side is only going to improve them. They were a good side last year. They just lacked a little bit of leadership. Great forward pack, Frizzell, Manbun, DeBellin, and the like. The hard as nails forward pack, they'll do well. Sharks, I think Moylan's going to find a new lease of life at 5'8" without the leadership woes that he had at the Panthers. And Chad Towns, they got depth. Sharks have got a lot of depth, and they got that big guns new winger, Sioti Katana, whatever his name is. Looks for goods. They'll finish fifth. I've got the Roosters in fourth. Adding Cronk and Tedesco means more points. I think the spine will take a little while to gel, but once it gels, they'll be going gangbusters. In third, I got the Eels. Hayne back there with the side they had last year. They've added Kane Evans up front, big size in the forward pack now. As long as their coconut forwards keep a tight rein on what they're doing and don't give away too many penalties, then the Eels will have a good year. Corey Norman and Mitchell Moses look like a very competent halves combination. And second, I've got the Storm. Business as usual. Brady Croft has just walked in. He's just filled in Cooper Cronk's shoes with they're not losing anything. The only players they're going to lose is Jordan McLean and Tohu Harris. And my minor premiers and most likely season premiers will be the Cowboys. And just because they got Jonathan Thurston back, Matt Scott back, Jordan McLean comes into the forward pack. Class out wide. They're going to miss Linnett for a while by the looks of it, 10 to 14 weeks. I don't think that's going to hinder them. And I think they will be minor premiers. And that's my season ending positions.
There you go. So there's a few similarities and a few differences there, but can't always agree. So I think what we need to work on next week is who's the sugar of the NRL. Is it Cam Smith, the man who can just walk along and do whatever he wants and never get caught? It's a worthwhile discussion to have, I think. And one thing that we can probably touch on next week is a preliminary talk about the New South Wales side for Origin. I'm looking at a team full of young guns this year that includes the likes of Josh Addo-Carr, Latrell Mitchell, Kotrick from the Raiders, where it's a new era under Brad Fittler. So, and obviously we can talk about we'll do our first season preview, which is really exciting given that we'll be on one day before the first game, and looking forward to getting the season off and running, even though it's between two perennial turds in the Broncos and the Dragons.
Your mates. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. Is it too early to talk about Origin next week?
I don't think it's ever too early to talk about Origin. So with a change of the guard in the coaching ranks, so having a look at some of the potential young guns who could come in and revitalise a stale New South Wales side, it's something to look forward to. So yeah, we'll give it a lash and see how we go. Until next week. I'll give you the last word, mate. Any last thoughts?
Not really. I think I've got no last words. Bring on the season proper next week, and we'll have a lot more to talk about.
All right. So for Steve Lamb, I'm Mick Edgar, and you've been listening to the Blindside podcast, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.